And welcome back, everyone. This is Dosashi, and welcome to my first tier list. Um, about a couple of weeks ago, I reached more than 50 subscribers, and I announced before that I would create a celebratory video, and here we are. So I'll be making my first tier list of all Mecha. You can see them right here below. In the order of release, and I will go through them based on a couple of aspects. Um, I will try to keep it brief. It will probably get longer than than I originally intended, and I hope you enjoy it. Um, Before we get into it, let me be perfectly clear that these are my opinions, and like any opinion, we can have different ones. You can have a different opinion than I do, and that's all fine. Feel free to leave comments, feel free to engage in discussion with me, as long as you keep it civil. Um, I will be grading these mecha based on a couple of aspects that I prepared. Um, First of all, I'm gonna take a look at how easy are they to get into. Then, how high is the skill ceiling? So, what I mean by that is how much some mecha get better the more time and effort you put in there. In them, and the more you practice, the better you find like the intricacies that make certain mecha better than others in certain scenarios. So yeah, not all mecha are the same in how easy they are to get into. Not all mecha are the same in like their skill potential and the skill ceiling potential. And then there's also the matter of mobility. So I think all mecha actually, before we go into mobility, when we think of damage potential, I think all of these mecha can blast relatively equally. They just require different situations, different scenarios, and you have to play around those. So, for example, if you're gonna play Boltus as a brawler, yeah, it's gonna be tough. But if you are playing Boltus as a more in a more poking way, then you can do way more damage. Same like Hotsteel. If you want to be sniping with Hotsteel, well, good luck. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying you make it yourself quite difficult for the damage potential. So damage potential wise, I think these mecha are quite similar. They just require different scenarios. But when it comes to mobility, there's definitely some big differences. Some mecha just have better mobility than others, and here um, uh, I'll address the horizontal mobility and the vertical mobility. So some mecha have both, some mecha have only one or the other. So those are the aspects that I'm grading, and I also, before we get into this, I want to make perfectly clear that I think every single mecha in the current rotation is good. I don't think there's one objectively better than the other. Again, these are my subjective perspectives, and I hope you enjoy them. And maybe I will learn something from it, and maybe you'll learn something from it as well. So, without further ado, let's just jump into it. Starting off with Firefox. Firefox, first mecha I've ever played. It's a really easy mecha to get into, so that automatically already jumps it to A. Skill ceiling is pretty good, not the best. Mobility, it has really good horizontal mobility, but a short cooldown on the dash. Vertical mobility, it has a decent jump, but you cannot get to all places. Have very high damage though, so if you're in point blank range and you manage to hit all your bullets and rockets, you will just annihilate anything. So in the right hands, I would say Firefox, yeah, because of that, the skill ceiling gets a bit higher, so I would place Firefox at A plus here. Moving on to Arthur. Arthur is a mecha that I had to get into a little bit. I had to practice quite some bit because it required a little bit more of a different playstyle than I was used to. In the beginning, I thought that the being able to be mandatory, to be standing still or hovering still, I saw that as a big downside. But actually, it compensated really well with its mobility. And because Arthur has such tremendous mobility, both horizontal and vertical, you cannot get to all places necessarily, but you can get to many places. And to be honest, with Arthur, you don't have to go to so many places. You just have to be able to uh, dodge the bullets, basically. You have to um, yeah, surprise your enemies. Make sure that you are not where they think you're gonna be. You can dash left and right, up and down, especially if you have the core module that allows you to do it even more, even faster, with shorter time intervals. I think Arthur, I mean, in the right hands, any mecha is really good, but Arthur has a very high skill ceiling. Um, yeah, I think why is it then not S plus? Mm, I don't know. Maybe it will change into S plus later. For now, I think S ranking is gonna be it for Arthur because it's so immensely mobile. Um, moving on to Caramel. Caramel is a mecha that also requires a bit more practice. Of course, I mean you can just get into it, start blasting people, and done. So it's easy to get into, but uh, not easy to master, I would say, because you can transform, and you cannot just always transform into tank and think, oh, this is fine, I'm gonna blast people. No, you have to know when to transform. Um, um, because sure, the tank does a lot of damage, but you're just a sitting duck, basically. Um, its vertical mobility is amazing. I think with Caramel, I think that any place that I can think of, I can just jump there, go there. You can go from roof to roof with ease. You can just literally select the location where you want to go and go there and then transform into tank. And then in the tank mode, one of the really big benefits is that when you hover over an enemy, they get highlighted. So very often when I'm just scouting the area, it kind of functions like a sniper in a way. In the tank mode, I can find pilots that I with a bare eye did not always see. So it's a good scanning device. So that places Caramel a bit higher. Mm, but its vertical mobility is pretty mediocre. It's not so fast while running. The jumping is okay. It's mostly like the big leap that's making it really good, and especially vertically. Let's continue with Skylark. Skylark is a little bit similar to, I would say, Firefox and Caramel because it has a lot of good mobility, but with Skylark, it's mostly horizontal mobility. Sure, you can hover a little bit and you can, just similar to Arthur, play with dodging bullets and stuff like that. Especially good Skylark players I've seen do that really well while aiming with their fast bullets, dealing a lot of damage, and it also has a self heal capability. But the thing is, if you miss your self heal, then you not only miss the damage, but you also miss the self heal. So it's pretty skill dependent, I would say, Skylark. Maybe even more than Caramel and Firefox. So maybe actually Skylark is more fitting in A ranking. Um, Again, in the right hands, it's amazing mecha. I mean, I love playing this mecha. I had to get into it though. Skill ceiling, I think, is a little bit lacking because you cannot just get to any place. Uh, you have to play it a little bit more like an assassin, I think, like going between buildings, between the hills, jumping above them and then hide behind them. Um, while still seeing your enemies with the right tech modules. You can do that, which is very unique. I think none of the mecha actually can do that. So that does make it really good, but it's very like niche. It's a very niche situation. So that, yeah, I think A ranking is pretty good for Skylark there. Then we go to Andromeda. And Andromeda, I think the first thing that I think of is like it's a top tier mecha. It's oh, let's put it higher. I think I've seen a lot of pro players. I don't know if they're actually pros, but like really good players play Andromeda, and I've played some Andromeda games by myself. Quite a lot actually. I think I'm like rank 29 or something. Yeah, level 29, something like that. Um, and what makes Andromeda so good is just similar to Caramel, you can get to any place. But also similar to Arthur, you can really dodge easily out of the way. You can shoot and drop yourself, then catch yourself while hovering again, then dash to the side, then fly upwards, and you can all do all of this motion while shooting. Uh, and then when you hit your secondary, sure, you do have to hit it, but then you also have extra tracking on your shots. It's really easy to do a lot of damage, I think, with Andromeda. Of course, you do need to aim well. You do need to lead your attacks, like kind of predict where your enemies will be. Um, but because of those things, I think this, if you do those things right, I think the skill ceiling of Andromeda, there we go, is really high. So that places it right next to Arthur, maybe even a little bit higher. I don't know. Maybe even S plus. Let's keep Andromeda for now at S rank. Okay, Hotsteel. Hotsteel, I gotta say, I have to be honest. Hotsteel, I'm kind of biased with. It's my first favorite mecha. It's my second highest ranking mecha, like level 33 or something, 34. So I definitely played most of my games in Hotsteel. Um, and it's one of those mecha. Let's first park it here. I think Hotsteel, it's the mecha with the most hit points. Um, so for that matter, it's the tankiest, but it is surprisingly agile also. It's fast. It can dash in all directions, also upwards, and then you can catch yourself and you can hover upwards. This also allows you to get anywhere, just like Andromeda actually, but in a faster speed, even though you have like 1,000 more hit points or something. Uh, but compared to Andromeda, Hotsteel has way slower bullets, cannon balls. I don't know how to call it. So the leading of the attacks, what you have to be doing with almost any mecha, but you have to be doing that more with Hotsteel. So it means you have to calculate more where your enemies are going. So that also means that against, for example, an Andromeda or an Arthur or a Skylark or a Hurricane or any other like highly hypermobile mecha, yeah, you either have to be super close to them or you have to really calculate where they're gonna be, and so you can be juked a bit easier. Um, at the same time, it's just the mobility is so good, and when you're in point blank range, it's you can just blast anyone and you can just hover up. In the right hand side, I think the skill ceiling of Hotsteel is really high. Um, so that makes it better, but it's a bit harder to get into. You really need a lot of time and practice to get Hotsteel working. So I think actually I will place it right next to Skylark where I originally placed it. Um, and don't get me wrong, personally, just from my own perspective, I would put it at S in my own experience. But I think in general, for also for other players, getting into it, it requires more practice. It requires a specific playstyle. Yeah, you can poke a little bit in the distance, and it has explosives have big radius, and you can get almost anywhere. But with Caramel Andromeda, it's way easier to get anywhere, and it's also easy to hit targets than with Hotsteel. Okay, moving on, Gabriel. So Gabriel, I'm also a bit biased, but more like biased against. I didn't play Gabriel so much, and also I'm in general not the biggest sniper player. And also this playstyle to me personally is sometimes a bit boring because you really have to like go to the rooftops, find like a nice camping spot, and then Gabriel is amazing because then the trick of what works really well with Gabriel is being somewhere that people don't know where you are, and then you blast them, and before they actually have found you, they're already dead. If your aim is well and if you manage to blast them before they find you, which is definitely possible with Gabriel. But that playstyle for me is a bit less fun. Also, I think the skill ceiling is okay. I've seen people really do some tremendous combos of jumping, sniping, then doing a couple of normal blasts, and then zooming in again to snipe. If you have that rhythm going, it's your DPS is really high, and your jump is actually pretty good, and your dash you can go to many different places. It's really your mobility is actually pretty good, but it has a long cooldown, and uh, yeah, while that is on cooldown, your mobility is actually just limited to a couple of jumps. Um, so yeah, it's more like in the right hands, it's amazing. So the skill ceiling is okay, but it's hard to go beyond my own bias. I will place Gabriel here. Probably people are gonna say, no, no, Gabriel's S plus rank. What are you crazy? Well, I don't think I'm crazy. But feel free to tell me your experiences with Gabriel and why you would rank it higher. That's all fine. I think from what I've seen so far, by playing myself and playing against Gabriel, but also seen on the internet, I would rank Gabriel as B plus. Continuing with Doomlight. So Doomlight is almost as tanky as Hotsteel, and has a very unique playstyle. Doomlight is slow. It creates a shield instead of dashing, so horizontal mobility is just bad. You walk slowly, and you cannot really dash, but you have a shield, and the shield is interesting. Interesting. It's an interesting mechanic, but I notice it as an opponent. If you know that they're gonna put up their shield, you can just move around it or above it, and then you're forcing the Doomlight to move around it themselves as well. So yeah, I don't think the shield is that great. But what Doomlight has alongside that is it has really good vertical mobility. It flies upwards really fast. So if you can use that to your advantage, you can actually reach quite a lot of different places. And similar to Hotsteel. And the other thing is that Hotsteel can throw those turrets. Doomlight can throw those turrets. And those turrets have multiple functions. Not only can they do pretty decent damage, they can also pinpoint people. They can find people. And that is, I think, in a squad environment, very valuable because finding people, even also when they're inside or when they're trying to sneak from building to building, that's very valuable to get that information by just playing your mecha with its integrated skills. So for that reason, I think the skill ceiling is a bit higher. It's pretty easy to get into this mecha, but at the same time, it's very limited to a specific play style, and because of that, I'll place it right here next to Gabriel, maybe even a little bit lower because it's a bit. Well, they're both actually limited to a specific playstyle. Um, they're both not so mobile. They're useful in their own niche situations, but yeah, I think this is a good place. Then Firestar. I think Firestar has like the best close range finisher with the flamethrower. Like it's really easy to finish off pilots. It's really easy to finish off mecha if they're right in front of you. It has like this burn effect when you hit people, which is really useful because you can also track them after hitting them. Similar to Skylark actually. It's interesting because before I said Skylark is the only that does it, but through that bleeding or the burning effect, Firestar also has some kind of tracking capabilities. It has really good mobility, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, actually wherever you want to go, it can go. It can even go into buildings because it can turn into this ball. And I think design-wise, this is a very amazing mecha um, because it's so versatile. But I do have to say it requires quite a lot of practice. Also for its function, because it feels like a brawler, it's relatively squishy. Of course, you get like extra shielding when you turn into ball and stuff like that. But sometimes the ball is pretty easy to hit. So you can also get on top of buildings, stuff like that, but you really have to aim it well. Um, hmm. I think the skill ceiling of Firestar is pretty high. A bit harder to get into. So I think A ranking would be really fitting of Firestar. No. Okay, here we go. Hurricane. I think it's not a surprise if I would rank Hurricane right there. Um, yeah, I mean the first thing that I think of with Hurricanes is S plus rank. It's they've been constantly rebalancing this mecha. Um, okay, I have to say it's not an easy mecha to get into. You really have to practice the jump, then the flight, and then hover, into jump, into dash, into hover. Uh, but all of these combination options allow it that this mecha is highly versatile. And I'm not even talking about like the tracking of the homing missiles or the immense damage from the machine guns. Um, it's fast. It can get anywhere, both horizontally, vertically. Um, it can dash, shoot homing missiles without even knowing where the enemies are, then drop itself and transform into hovering, then blasting someone else, then shoot. It's this mecha has so much potential. Yes, it requires effort. Yes, it requires practice. But even with this bit of practice, you can already outmaneuver your enemies. And yeah, it's just the homing missiles are just so strong in combination with its crazy mobility. I think yeah, Hurricane is an easy S plus ranking. Moving on to Raven. It's one of my favorite mecha. I think it's my top 5 played mecha. And it's typically one of those high rank, high reward mecha where if your aim is well, if your positioning is good, you are destroying everyone. And also in any distance. So it can snipe, it can brawl, because when you jump and you aim, you have this kind of this effect of slowing time. It kind of feels like that. It's not more like bullet time or whatever you're gonna call it. But you can control when you want it and when you don't want it. Sometimes I jump, I hover, and sometimes I just jump and let myself fall and then start aiming. Just alternating those things makes this a really good mecha, and also with that grappling hook, you can get almost anywhere. I think, yeah, actually really similar to Andromeda, you can and Caramel, you can get almost anywhere. So in the right hands, I would definitely say S or S plus. But the moment you miss a shot, it's immediately you lose 600 to 700 damage. Um, there's a little bit of tracking going on with the right tech module that I definitely recommend using. Um, you get that little like black circle above the enemy after hitting them, but then again, you first have to hit them with your arrows. Um, I hear a lot of people say that this mecha is very dependent on core 1. Yeah, it makes it stronger and easier to use at core 1, but I don't think you need it. I played a lot of games with this mecha where I had core 1, I did not have core 1, and I still smashed. But then again, you need good aim, you need to have good positioning. It's relatively squishy, but it's such a good mecha. But because it requires so much practice, I'm actually thinking of placing it here. I think Caramel is easier. Raven does have a way higher skill ceiling though. No, I have to, because it has such a high skill ceiling, it has to get higher, be higher. Yeah. Really good vertical and horizontal mobility. And don't forget, it has, just like Arthur, not many mecha have this, but just like Arthur, and in certain way also Hurricane, you can use momentum. So your forward momentum you can use after using your grappling hook, and if you jump at the right moment, you get kind of swung into the air. And this can also be used for extra mobility, but also for extra unpredictability. So I think Raven is really a really powerful mecha. Oh, maybe it should even be here. No, but because Arthur and Andromeda are definitely easier to use than Raven, so let's keep it like this. Okay, Trio of Enders. So, like in one of my later videos that you saw, I had to come back on my opinion on this mecha, because in the beginning I was like, oh, don't play this mecha. I mean, play it if you like it, but it's not good, or it's boring. But I played it more and more, and now I think I got it into like rank 20 or something. And I think this is the mecha with the highest damage potential. If you combine like switching weapons on the right time in the right scenarios, um, you can do so much damage. And also, if you have that core that you even shoot rockets when you reload, this mecha is like an unstoppable force of dealing damage. And then at the same time, it's also super tanky, and it has really good horizontal mobility, similar to Skylark, but it's more tanky. And I do think it has higher damage potential. And it also has a higher versatility in. So the versatility really brings it high, because you have the rockets that have AoE, you have the big bullets that shoot more like Firefox or Hurricane, and then you have the shotgun at point blank range, and I don't think there's any other, maybe Firestar, but that in point blank range can do so much damage so fast. Yeah, maybe Firestar and later Neutron Star. Those are like melee monsters. But I do think a Trio of Enders fits that category of being a melee monster. But on top of that, it's so adaptable um, to any situation. If you need to blast someone out of a house where they're hiding, use the rockets. If you are closing in on someone while dashing and using all your weapons at the same time, and you're destroying them and you get close to them, switch to shotgun, finish them off. Keep shooting to already hit the pilot for quite a lot. Then on the range, poking on a range, use your rockets, use your machine gun. On mid range, you can just choose when to use it, but it requires more awareness. It requires you to know where you are, where your enemies are, how your terrain is developing, where you need to be moving. So it requires kind of more like meta knowledge. So in that sense, it's similar to Raven, where it requires quite a lot of skill to use this mecha well. But when you do have those skills and you do have that practice, um, it's a really good mecha. But unfortunately, Trio of Enders has really bad vertical mobility. So you're kind of stuck to the ground, similar to Firefox. But it really compensates it with its damage potential and adaptability. So I do think Trio is an A plus mecha. Okay, Neutron Star. This is one of those mecha that I really, really love. It's my third favorite mecha, or third most played mecha, I have to say. I think it's rank 31 or something. And yeah, I have to be honest, Sometimes I have periods where I play just multiple games of Neutron Star after each other. I don't upload so much with Neutron Star for some reason, but I just win a lot with this mecha. Doesn't matter whether it's squad games or solo games. It's just, I think it fits my playstyle as a brawler. But it's not just a brawler, it's also like an assassin, but it has like the tankiness, enough tankiness and mobility to be a brawler and an assassin. And but it can also poke. You just can poke slowly, slowly, and just wait for the opportune moment before you come in and just slash them to pieces. And I do think with this mecha you really want, I think it's core 2, the one that lets you hover when you dash. And then it's basically like Andromeda, uh, but with immense melee power. Yeah, Neutron Star is crazy good. Whenever I see one in my enemy team, I'm scared. I'm trying to stay away from it. Um, it does help to know that you know that Neutron Star wants to get close to you, but yeah, the moment it gets close to you, just it's over really. It has so much burst and it has such good mobility because if you do the combo of jump, dash, uh, slash, and then you do again dump, jump, dash, slash, you just dash and fly through the air. It can get in so many different places. It's a really mobile mecha with very high damage potential. It does require some getting into, um, and it does require a specific playstyle, but at the same time, it's very adaptable. You can also build it with the tech modules to be a little bit more of a poker. I personally prefer it more like a melee mecha, really close range. But you can definitely make the spread more narrow of your bullets and play it more like a poker. It's such a good mecha. Yeah, let's just continue with Boltus. Boltus also has a lot of damage potential. Has a good dash where you can, similar to Hotsteel, change direction mid dash, which is really nice. You can get to many different locations. Yes, so with the dash you can go horizontal, diagonal, vertical, similar to Firestar, Hotsteel. It's a bit squishy though, and you do need to hit your secondary. If you miss your secondary, you miss out on a lot of damage. Luckily, it's relatively easy to hit your secondary. I actually think, because I didn't play Bolter so much, so that's why I'm naturally placing a little bit lower, but maybe I do have to place it here, because I have seen others play Bolters really well, also opponents, but also on YouTube, for example. Yeah, it is pretty mobile, but I don't think it's just as good as these three, or no, I think A plus or A. Let's go A plus because it is mobile. It has very high damage potential, but it's kind of like you can poke, you can blast, and that's it. It doesn't really feel like a very versatile mecha. So actually, maybe for that reason, you have to place it a little bit lower even. It has pretty good mobility though. I do think it has better mobility than Trio, and also actually better than Firefox. But I think those mecha are more adaptable, so that's why I'm putting Boltus at A. Beautiful mecha though. Okay, Ventorus. Ventorus, I think, has a very high skill ceiling, um, but it's not easy to get into. It kind of presents itself as a brawler, as a melee to mid-range kind of mecha, but its skill set does not really. Um, I mean, its skill set does actually show that as well. It's just hard to say. I've played Venturus quite a bit, exploring it, and it also can transform into this nuking mode, which is really good. But for some reason, It is mobile. It has kind of similar mobility as Firefox. I think its bullets are just a little bit too slow in general. So maybe for that reason, I will actually place it here. I do think Ventorus might need a little buff, and also for a long time. And luckily they changed this. But it's its size. I mean, the design is fun, having those dragons and stuff. But those dragons really obscured my vision so much that sometimes I just didn't play the mecha because I couldn't see where my enemies were because my mecha was in front. And luckily now they placed it a little bit more to the side to keep it more open, but still it's a pretty big mecha. Uh, or I mean, Hotsteel is bigger, but Ventorus takes more space in your screen still. And I think this is kind of a downside to this mecha. I do think it's a very fun design. It's really unique. Kind of has a bit of everything. Reminds me kind of a monk in D&D, which is actually really good. You can do a lot of different things with it, but it does not excel in any of those things, um, which is a shame because I think actually the design of this mecha has more potential than the mecha currently shows. And of course, there's people that are crazy good with this mecha. Um, Actually, because of those things, I might think this mecha might need a little buff. Not because it's bad, but just because it's not living on its full potential currently. Plus, it requires quite some. It has not really good vertical mobility. Oh, you can dash upwards actually with when you're transformed. But even then, yeah, the mobility is okay. It's not really easy to get into. Has a really relatively okay skill ceiling with. It's just, yeah, feels like it's on paper better than in practice. Okay, now we go on to Aurora, my number one played mecha, my favorite mecha, I think, still. And personally, I would actually place Aurora here, right next to Hurricane. It has excellent horizontal mobility, vertical mobility, scanning capabilities. It's fast. It can blast so hard with that cannon. The poking potential is good. Skill ceiling is really high because you can jump and dash and fly and hover and then shoot and blast and just use your secondary as scanning and then drop it so that nobody knows where you are. You can take out multiple people by yourself and then get away into safety before they realize what happened. It can be a poker, it can be an assassin, it can even be a sniper because you can get to almost any location in the game. I do have to say it requires a bit more effort to get into. Similar to Hurricane, you do need to practice. It is squishy. You need to also have the right tech modules. I think you have to experiment what kind of tech modules fit your playstyle and such. But if you get all of that down, I think currently I have rank 36 with Aurora. In the past few weeks, I've been the top 5 Aurora player also in my country, in the Netherlands. So I've played this mecha quite a bit. Also played against it quite a bit, and very often, I mean, the difference between a good Aurora player and an average Aurora player is really, really big because it is squishy. Same goes for Hurricane, but to be honest, any of these mecha can be destroyed within a couple of seconds if the player is not maneuvering the mecha well. But because the skill ceiling and the mobility and the damage potential are so high, this is S plus really. Not just because it's my favorite, it's also just a really, really good mecha. And on top of that, I fucking love the design, the aesthetic choices they went for. Okay, speaking of design, this is, I think, Alborada is the least well designed mecha aesthetically, so how it looks, because I think they went a little bit too hard on the gender the gendered features here, if you ask me. Again, this is just my opinion, but I don't know. I don't think a mecha needs a fucking skirt, man, and or boobs. I do know that Andromeda they also gave like the wide hips and stuff, but it's like on the edge for me. But with Alborada they went for it, and I don't know. It's a shame. But I'm not here to judge appearances. I'm here to judge the mechanics and the playstyle. And I do think I for this video I actually practiced some Andromeda. Alborada, because I I had this mecha at like rank 5 or something. I only played a couple of games with it and I got bored with it. But now that I played both some solo and squad games with it, I got this mecha like until rank 16 or something. It does tremendous damage. Because I always thought it's like a support mecha, but it's not. That's the whole thing. All of these mecha can function as support mecha. All these mecha can function as blasting mecha. You have so many different roles that you can take. And Alborada can really nuke. And it's an amazing brawler, actually. I've destroyed many Arthurs and Trios and Hurricanes and Auroras, even a Neutron Star at some point where I was like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Because if you sequence the skills correctly, you just keep all those little balls just do so much extra damage while you're giving yourself and your allies a shield. So for example, when you shoot your secondary, there's some tracking going on that makes you hit your target better with your primary weapon. But then when you dash, you get those little balls circling around you that also give extra damage. So almost similar to Trio actually. Almost anything you do increases your damage, which is amazing. Uh, then on the downside, this mecha has really bad vertical mobility. It has pretty decent horizontal mobility with that like circle jump. It's pretty decent. It's not great, but because it increases your damage, it becomes really good. But mobility wise, it's not really that great. Actually, now that I think of it, I do think Firestar has way better mobility than Alborada. Yeah, Firestar, but also Hotsteel. Why are they on the same level? Um, hmm. Alborada is easier to play, yeah, than those two. Far easier. Skill ceiling is okay. I think the skill ceiling of Firestar and Hotsteel is way higher than Alborada or Boltus. But Alborada is really easy to get into. You just use your abilities and you will do more damage. And then your if you hit your a healing or shielding orb that also deals damage, you also have some homing target lock system going on. I think Alborada is really easy to get into. Um, Decent skills. I do think the skill ceiling is actually a bit higher because you can use your abilities offensively and defensively. So that increases her skill ceiling. I think A ranking is pretty good. Um, she's a pretty. This is a pretty well balanced mecha. All right, Michael. There we go. All the way on top. Michael is top tier. Um, it cannot fly. It cannot hover, but it can get anywhere. Um, if you, it does require some practice. You do have to make what is it 360 180 the whole time to dash in the opposite direction that you already dashed, just to keep getting higher. But it's so good. You can dash in any direction and then dash in any other direction again, all while in the meantime keep shooting. Um, you can get to any position. Mobility is amazing. The damage is fast. You can poke. You can brawl. You can jump between buildings, on top of buildings. It's so, it's such a good mecha. Design is also fucking awesome. I think it's amazing, beautiful looking mecha. I'm just thinking because maybe it should be here because it requires more practice, but the same goes for Aurora and Hurricane. I do think the skill ceiling is way higher than Andromeda, Arthur, and Neutron Star. If you practice, for example, what I mean by that is if you put the same time in an Arthur and the same time in Michael, you will be able to do more with Michael, um, or Aurora or Hurricane, because they are so adaptable. Sure, squishy, yes, but if you are using all your awareness and all your mechanical skills that you accumulated over playing this while playing this game, you can just do so much with it. I think yeah, Michael is top tier, definitely. Ranger is really good. I think this was after I started playing, so Hotsteel became my number one real fast. Then Ranger was my number one for a while, when I was climbing the ranking in the first season that I played. So that's 3 seasons ago. So I played quite some Ranger. Right now I'm rank 26. I got it to rank 25 really quick and then kind of stopped playing it because I started unlocking other mecha. Um, I think what makes Ranger so good is, of course, it can transform into this car, and the car is just so. I think the car is like a better version of the ball of Firestar. Okay, the ball. Um, yeah, because it's faster than the ball. I think I didn't test it. I think it's faster. It's lower, so you can get to more places. Um, but also the control of it is a bit easier. The ball requires a bit more effort, a bit more training, because the momentum is a bit more unpredictable. Um, I think the damage output of Ranger is really good. The blasting, the electricity thing. Um, you can also bump with the car to finish people off while reloading. You can dash up uh, up on buildings, then get out of the way real quick, then get into the action real quick. It's pretty similar to Firestar, but I think in general Ranger is just a slightly more streamlined version of it. I hope I don't offend people with it. One thing, by the way, that I just remembered, both Ranger and Alborada have this mm, effect that when they're running and you stop running, they kind of slide a little bit over the ground. And that is actually a little bit of a downside for both of them because you have to kind of, when you're running and moving your mecha, you have to always keep that in mind. You have to remind yourself, hey, if I want to stop there, I have to actually stop running earlier, otherwise I will go beyond the point where I need to go. And it has resulted many times in me just falling off of a building or something. Of course, that's a matter of practice, but it is a little downside to their speed. I think it's a nice balancing design. This is something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think Ranger is good here on the A plus. Um, Flamenco has the same mobility as Caramel. Has the same, not the same. It has like similar melee burst potential as Arthur and Neutron Star or Michael. There's a little bit less poke potential than Andromeda. It is okay with poking, but the thing is with Flamenco, how they balanced it is if you poke longer, your spread of bullets get wider. So the further the distance, the less efficient your poking becomes. So it's kind of stuck in this mid-range to um, melee area, and in that area it's really strong. And just like Caramel, it can get anywhere. But I will actually lower Flamenco because Caramel is good in any distance. It can poke from a far distance, and it can destroy people in melee range or in mid range. Flamenco kind of drops off a bit harder in the long range, which makes it a bit more niche. So actually, maybe, even though I really like this mecha, because it's so niche, I think it drops even lower towards B plus, even though it has pretty good mobility and pretty good burst potential. It says hit and run, but I don't think it's actually that much of a hit and run um, mecha. It's more a brawler, and it cannot do much more than brawling, I would say. The jump is okay, and also when your leap is on cooldown, your mobility is actually pretty bad, both horizontal and vertical. So yeah, I think this is a good location. All right, then we continue to Pulsar. Pulsar, I've seen some players play really well. I played Pulsar till like rank 25 or something, 26. I played it a lot when it just came out, and after that, I kind of focused my time on other mecha. Um, I think the design of Pulsar is amazing. I just have to say it. Also, how it transforms, it's so stunning. And I like it that it's kind of like it transforms into sniper in melee range or in normal mode. Some kind of blend between Skylark, Trio, and Neutron Star. And then when it transforms, it becomes kind of this blend between Raven, Raven, and Gabriel. It's kind of it's really what I said earlier about Ventorus is kind of in between of a lot of different things, but where Ventorus does not really shine in any of those aspects. I think Pulsar really does have its moments where it can shine. However, it requires quite some practice. And I've seen people really alternate and sequence the blasting and then transforming to shoot. And while that reloads, you go back to blasting. While that reloads, you go back to sniping. And that kind of back and forth works really well for your damage output. But while hovering up and then dropping and doing all of those things at the same time, it's amazing, and it makes the skill ceiling of Pulsar actually, have to say, at S plus with the skill ceiling alone, but it requires way more effort than the other ones that are there, I would say, to get there. And I think it does not compete with these here. I think A plus would be good for that reason. It has really good mobility. It's fast. It requires quite some fuel though, but you can fix that by playing the pilot skill that gives you more fuel. Yeah, I think Pulsar is on the right place here. But then again, I think Firefox and Caramel or Trio and Range are actually easier to play than Pulsar. So actually, let's Pulsar a little bit lower even, because before you get any decent with Pulsar, you actually need to put more time in than any of these other mecha. All right, here we continue with Snow Mirage. And when Snow Mirage just came out, I was so happy because not only was it a sniper that could also brawl, it had something very unique, and that's this stealth mode. And it could hover and it could dash. I think Snow Mirage is a very versatile mecha. Nowadays, they did nerf the brawling capabilities quite a lot. In the beginning, when it came out, easy S plus there, easy. Even to a point where I thought maybe it's a bit overtuned, maybe it's a little bit broken. And then now they nerfed it in such a way that it actually is forced more into a sniper position. And then you would think, oh, okay, but then it's forced into this niche. But no, it's not. That's not the case, because it still has all of these other things going. So Gabriel, of course, it's an easy comparison, Snow Mirage and Gabriel, but also a little bit Pulsar or a Raven. Those are kind of the sniper mecha, maybe even Boltus. Um, but Snow Mirage, I think, is more versatile because it can sneak better. It can also hide itself in places where only few other mecha can come, because it can hover, but then it can also make itself stealthy. And it's not like invisibility. If you look and you see it move, you can see it move. If it stands still and it starts shooting, and then before it reloads and hits you again, And before you know where to look, it can already have taken you out as a sniper. But it can also function decently as a brawler with the little grenade and the handguns. And then you dash away to finish stuff with a sniper, or the other way around. You start sniping and they come towards you, you swap towards the handguns and the grenade to finish it off. It, you can be in so many different positions. You can it's very adaptable, this mecha. So actually, because it's so adaptable, I think it should be an S rank. It does require quite some practice, and similar to Raven, if you miss, you miss, and then then you miss out on this 8 or 900 damage or something. Um, you can two-shot pilots. I've seen people. Oh my god, I've seen people play Snow Mirage that they shoot them, they demech people, and then while they are being shot up vertically, they all before they reach the highest point, they just snipe them with a headshot out of the air. I've also seen people do that with Gabriel. Sure, I've also seen people do that with Hurricane. Okay, fine. Or with Firefox. I have not managed to do that. My aim is not good enough for that yet. But I've seen people do that with so much consistency with Snow Mirage. That is really strong to be able to do that. And sure, in theory, every single mecha can do this, but I think um, being able to one-shot people, pilots, is a very strong ability. And most mecha cannot do that with one single hit to take someone down by a headshot. Um, and I think that makes it S rank because the skill ceiling of this mecha is so high. It's not really easy to get into, so that would drop it a little bit more again, but the skill ceiling is so high that it has to be S tier. Okay, we're almost there. JoJo, one of the funnest latest releases, or maybe one of the funnest mecha in general. I love this design. I think it's hella cute. It's more in a category of caramel, where we have kind of this animal thing going on. We have a bear, now we have a penguin. Fucking awesome. Um, JoJo is a really easy mecha to get into. Um, those explosives are fast, especially if you have the right tech modules. They blast so fast. And then you have that mine that does a lot of damage and also displaces people, similar like caramel, but it's easier to place. I actually it has to be higher. I wouldn't say it's at the same time you can fly in any direction, but you have shorter flight than, for example, these. Let me think. With the right core, you can do more damage. Yeah, so JoJo is good also in multiple distances. It can poke quite well on a far distance. It's really excellent in mid to close range, and it's just the burst, the nuke potential. It's crazy. The mobility is really good because you can fly in any direction. It's loud though, so people will know that there's JoJo nearby because of all of these explosives, similar to Hotsteel. Um, those mecha are just so loud. You will always know, hey, oh, there's JoJo or Hotsteel in the neighborhood. So it's not sneaky, but you don't have to be sneaky with this mecha. You can fly in and out of danger, real easy. Yeah, I think this is an S rank. Also, similar to what Stormmarch can do, when you demech someone, and I have this on video even, with JoJo, you can kill them before they shoot up. I did this a couple of times, so when you kill someone or demech someone, immediately you have to throw your mine at that location and start blasting and fly towards them. And then when all those explosions happen at the same time, at the moment when a pilot is demeching and about to shoot up, you just kill them right before they shoot up. So that combo is crazy because not only did you demech them, you also killed the pilot before they could do a thing. And in a way, that could even be S plus if you have the right training and the right exercise. But I think I will place this here because these three are so top rank because I feel like they can get in and out of any situation. But JoJo is a bit more difficult. But maybe in time that will change. I don't know. It's like JoJo is good. I think it's in a good line here. Then the latest release, Skyfall. It's a really good mecha. I like the little buffs that they gave after the release. Um, I talked about this before in my playthroughs with Skyfall. It has pretty bad mobility. Its vertical mobility practically doesn't exist. It has a mediocre jump. And its horizontal mobility is a bit similar to what Snow Mirage and Firefox can do. But Firefox and Snow Mirage do it faster. Skyfall has a longer cooldown time. It has really good blasting, similar to JoJo and Hotsteel and Trio with the explosive radiuses, but those bullets, those rockets are a bit faster with Skyfall. So with Skyfall, it is easier to hit your targets on a longer distance. So I have noticed that Skyfall is really like a mid-range monster. Melee range, okay. Long range, okay, but mid-range, it's where it shines. A bit similar to Ranger, actually. I think Ranger also really shines in mid-range and Caramel as well. And the dashing is useful, but what makes the dashing really good is that it reloads. That's what makes this mecha really good. You basically never have to lose time by reloading. And in that sense, it's a bit similar to Trio of Enders, but Trio has more damage potential, while it has also a slightly better mobility than Skyfall. So actually, I think Skyfall would drop a little bit because of that. Because I do think all of these mecha have better mobility than Skyfall, while maintaining similar damage potential. And skill ceiling wise, let me think. Okay, this is quite similar. I think Caramel has a higher skill ceiling. Raven definitely has a higher skill ceiling. So I think this is about it. Okay, it was quite a video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please leave your comments, leave your feedback, leave your opinions. This is my ranking of summer 2022 of all the mecha that just came out with the current patches. And next time I will probably do some pilots, and maybe after that some modules and stuff like that. Alright, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later. Goodbye. Peace.